Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason at Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis, Indiana, and today I am visiting the gravesite of President Benjamin Harrison. So Benjamin Harrison, he was the 23rd president of the United States, and I'm sorry to say, he was one of the least remembered, and probably because maybe he served one term. Maybe a lot of people believe there isn't much legacy to it, but hopefully you learned in history class all the United States presidents. Now, he was a one-term president. Like I said, he served right between Grover Cleveland, who was the only president to this day to serve 2 non-consecutive terms. But I will tell you so much history to Benjamin Harrison you wouldn't believe. And of course, I'm going to visit his gravesite, which is like right behind me. So here we go. And that, of course, is a sign that tells you where to find Benjamin Harrison, the 23rd president of the United States, 1889 to 1893. He was the grandson of William Henry Harrison, the only U.S. president that has like the shortest term. He served 39 days in office. He had the longest inauguration speech. Well, I'll get into him in another video, but I'm here to talk about Benjamin Harrison. And you know what else? What I was saying was a lot of presidents during that era, like after Lincoln and Andrew Johnson, and I'd say before Teddy Roosevelt, a lot of U.S. presidents haven't really gotten much. I don't know how to say this, but like more like I don't want to say respect, but history hasn't really recorded very much from, say, Chester Arthur, Rutherford B. Hayes, and Benjamin Harrison. I'll include him in that club, and William McKinley as well. But I'm definitely going to include a lot of interesting trivia information, like, for example, he is also the great-grandson of Benjamin Harrison, who was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He was born in North Bend, Ohio. He attended Carey's Academy near Cincinnati, and in 1850 he enrolled in Miami of Ohio University as a junior and was graduated in 1852 with honors. He moved to Indianapolis in order to begin a legal practice, and was elected Indianapolis City Attorney in 1857. He became the Supreme Court reporter in 1860. During the Civil War, at the request of the governor, he raised the 70th Indiana Volunteer Infantry and was commissioned its colonel and commander on August 7, 1862. After the Civil War, he resumed his law practice in Ohio, and in 1881, he was elected as a Republican to represent Indiana in the United States Senate, serving until 1887. At the 1888 Republican Convention, he was nominated as a candidate for president on the 8th ballot. He did lose the popular vote by a narrow margin, but he won the electoral vote, defeating incumbent President Grover Cleveland, taking the presidency. Harrison was sworn in as the 23rd president of the United States on March 4th, 1889, on a rainy day. There's a picture that exists of the inauguration, and in a good gesture, I suppose, Grover Cleveland not only attended, but he also held the umbrella that sheltered the new president. So here's a summed up legacy with Harrison as president. He sponsored the first Pan American Congress. I gotta go down these steps while reading this. He supported the McKinley Tariff Act and the Sherman Antitrust Act. He appointed 4 justices to the United States Supreme Court. He established the Coast Guard Academy. He expanded the United States Navy from 3 steel warships to 22 ships. He had electricity installed in the White House and admitted 6 states to the Union. But his wife died in 1892 while he was in office, and she was the second First Lady to die while, their husband was in office, or their significant other. But he was renominated in 1892, but he was defeated by Grover Cleveland. Now, halfway through his presidency, the Republicans lost the midterms because supposedly during his administration, the Republicans were out of control spending. They pretty much had almost $1 billion budget, and yeah, even back then, that's so unheard of. But according to my research, that's true. The government spent a lot. But after Benjamin Harrison left office, he returned to his law practice in Indianapolis. He attended the Columbian Exposition in Chicago in 1893. Republican Party leaders urged him to seek high office again, but he declined. Harrison would temporarily live in San Francisco, teaching at Stanford University in 1894. A year later was the year that the former president would remarry, this time marrying his first wife Caroline's niece, Mary Dimmock, who was 25 years younger than him. They had one child together. In the winter of 1901, he developed influenza, which progressed to pneumonia, to which he succumbed within a month. Now we're going to walk into this. These are the final resting places, but before I go on there, I'll go ahead and check this out real quick. This side talks about Benjamin Harrison, lived from 1833 to 1901, lawyer and publicist. And of course talks about the titles I was talking about, but I'll read them again. The Colonel of the 70th Regiment in Indiana, War of 1861 to 1865. Brevetted Brigadier General, 1865. U.S. Senator from 1881 to 1887. President of the United States, 1889 1893. It doesn't say President of the United States, but I guess people already know anyway, right? And down here it says, statesman, yet friend to truth, of soul sincere, in action faithful, and in honor clear. And people have left pennies here. On the side, it talks about his wife, and Carolyn, this is his first wife, Carolyn Scott Harrison, who lived from 1832 to 1892. Beloved wife of Benjamin Harrison. They married October 20th, 1853, and first president and general daughters of the American Revolution. And then here's his second wife, Mary Lord Harrison, born April 30th, 1858, and died January 5th, 1948. Devoted wife of Benjamin Harrison, married April 6th, 1896. Now, she had worked in the White House during his first 2 years of office, so they knew each other because she was related to his wife, but they fell in love shortly after he left office, and that's great. And I do like how it is in the shade, like a lot of trees are surrounding it, but for anybody who's a photographer, they would have to deal with the lighting issues. But here is the final resting place of the 23rd President of the United States, right in front of me. And then this is his second wife, Mary Lord Harrison. And then his first wife, Carolyn Scott Harrison, or Caroline, sorry, I keep saying Carolyn. And then his son, Russell B. Harrison. So I hope I gave you guys a history lesson on who was Benjamin Harrison and who was he during the presidency. Now, some say he was very independent-minded, like he pretty much selected his whole cabinet by himself. Usually it's the vice president and maybe other close cabinet members, but apparently he was people were very critical of the president for doing that. And in case you're wondering which 6 states were admitted during his term, and by the way, he is the only U.S. president that had the most U.S. states admitted during his term, and not bad for 4 years, but those 6 in order are North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Washington, Idaho, and Wyoming. And interestingly, he was also interested in the United States annexing the Hawaiian Islands, which at the time was ruled by a monarchy, but that did not happen until Grover Cleveland's presidency. And of course, we all know that Hawaii became a state many years later. But rest in peace, Mr. President Benjamin Harrison. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason, just right in front of the grave of President Benjamin Harrison and his wife and kid in Indianapolis, Indiana, Crown Hill Cemetery. Sign off.